I'm here to tell you we are entering the age of superintelligence. Superintelligence is now on the horizon. You need to prepare for the world after superintelligence arrives. All government is now obsolete, the economy is about to be completely transformed, and no one is ready for it. You're all going to lose your jobs. We have to start rethinking everything now. We've got to develop a plan from scratch for human society that just starts from the top. Okay, that's what tech CEOs like Sam Altman and Elon Musk are telling us right now. It can be a little frightening. It might make you feel like you're behind the curve. You might find yourself feeling anxious about your job, or even catch yourself wondering, like, what kind of world are my children going to inherit? Like, how are my kids going to make it in a world where the machines are running everything? But hang on a minute. Once our fears and anxieties about the future take hold, we skip over one really crucial element in this whole story. That is, our minds go to the Matrix and cyberpunk dystopias like Blade Runner. But let's take a step back. Have we actually been moving towards superintelligence? Well, given all this talk about preparation, you could be forgiven for just assuming that AI companies are indeed moving towards superintelligence. You might even think we've made some kind of measurable progress towards it. Well, look, there's a lot of hype out there. And you should wonder, have we actually made real progress? Like, is superintelligence really coming? Another question I'd like you to ask yourself, if the AI companies are making progress towards superintelligence, how could we know? One of the most thorough discussions of superintelligence comes from Nick Bostrom in his book, Superintelligence. So in this video, we'll take a look at it and we'll see how he defines superintelligence, and we will see the role that quality of intelligence plays in his definition. Now, what is quality of intelligence? Well, it's not quantity of intelligence like speed, but quality. We've got to figure out what that means, and we'll walk through some examples comparing human and animal intelligence. Additionally, we'll explore the different ways animals experience qualities like colors, and we'll develop an analogy from color vision that I think helps us to understand. I think once we have a good grasp on quality of intelligence, then we'll be in a good position to evaluate what the tech CEOs are saying. All right, superintelligence. Nick Bostrom is kind of the godfather of the whole superintelligence conversation. He published his book Superintelligence in 2014 to warn us of the dangers, and this book was an enormous hit. All right, not just in the tech world, but even among the general public. All right, the following year, Marvel released Avengers: Age of Ultron, where the villain is a superintelligent AI that threatens humanity. Well, if you look carefully at Ultron's motives, it's going to remind you of some scenarios that Bostrom describes. Now, in addition to really bringing superintelligence into the public consciousness, this book has become the effective operating manual for futurists and tech CEOs. Bill Gates and Elon Musk both praise it. The book supposedly inspired OpenAI, and really the book frames how everyone in tech talks about progress in AI. That is, that we're moving towards superintelligence. So let's see what Bostrom has to say. Well, Bostrom says that superintelligence is any type of intelligence that vastly outperforms human intelligence. That's a little indirect and it's a little vague. Fortunately, he goes on further to say that there are basically three forms superintelligence can take. Speed superintelligence, that is an intelligence that processes information much faster than humans. Collective superintelligence, an intelligence formed of many intelligences working together to solve problems. And then the third is qualitative superintelligence. Okay, what is quality superintelligence? All right, so you're probably wondering, what is qualitative superintelligence? What would make an intelligence qualitatively superior to human intelligence? Well, first, it would not be a quantitative improvement, like speed of intelligence or number of thinkers. That is, the first two kinds of superintelligence that Bostrom describes represent simply quantitative improvements. The same kind of process, but faster, or more thinkers of the same kind. These are differences easily measured with numbers on a scale. I mean, we can measure processing speed in milliseconds, and we can measure the number of thinking parts of a collective in just the number of members. But how do we measure qualitative distinctions in intelligence? And note, this is really important. Understanding qualitative distinctions in intelligence is necessary for understanding all three kinds of superintelligence. Notice that speed superintelligence is not just an intelligence with a lot of speed. Think of a cat. A cat with a brain 100 times faster than a human would not be a superintelligence, but a very fast cat brain. No, a speed superintelligence would have to be an intelligence that has at least the quality of intelligence of a human, but sped up by orders of magnitude. So think of the Flash. Moves really fast, presumably thinks really fast. That would be human quality intelligence sped up. The same applies to collective superintelligence. It would have to be the collection of many individual intelligences that all have the intelligence of at least a human quality. That is, the collective intelligence of an ant colony or a herd of cattle would not be a superintelligence, no matter how big you made them. Okay, 1 million cows is not a superintelligence, right? A collective of intelligences of human quality, though, might be. Think of the projects like, landing a man on the moon or the Manhattan Project. That's an example of many quality human intelligences working together as a collective. So no matter how you slice it, we have to figure out what qualitative distinctions in intelligence are. This is both to understand human quality intelligence and what it would mean to have a superintelligence that was qualitatively superior to human, not merely quantitatively superior. That is, not just faster or with more memory or with more thinking parts. An intelligence that's not merely more of the same, but involves something new entirely, a new dimension of intelligence. Now, I realize this discussion, it might be intimidating, so let's start with some examples just to get comfortable talking about qualitative distinctions in general. I think we should warm up with a little puzzle from the nature of color vision, and then I'll show you the analogy to superintelligence. So first, imagine a woman, Mary, who is the world's leading neuroscientist. She specializes in the neurological processing of color. She knows everything about how light is detected on the retina. She knows all about the 3 types of cone cells that humans have that fire based on different wavelengths of light, how they're visually processed by the brain, everything, down to the last detail. However, there's a catch. Mary has also lived her entire life in this black and white room. So I realize this is kind of a wild thought experiment. She's never seen the color red before. She knows all about red from scientific research, and she knows exactly how the color experience of red is processed in the brain, but she's never seen it herself. So imagine the first time she steps outside the room and sees a red rose. Does Mary learn something new? Well, it would seem she does. She learns what red looks like. Now, philosophers, this is from Frank Jackson, they use this example to make the case for color experience being of qualia, as there's something it is like to see red, a qualitative experience. This means that seeing the color red is qualitatively distinct from seeing black or seeing white. Moreover, you can only know what the qualitative experience of seeing red is like by seeing red. You have to have some direct acquaintance or familiarity with it. No description, no matter how thorough, of what red looks like is going to help someone blind from birth know what red is like. It has to be seen. Thus, Mary's scientific knowledge of color vision in the brain is insufficient for her to know or even imagine what red is like. All right, so this is a great warm-up. Now let's push it a little further. So bear with me just a little bit longer. On the leading theory of color vision, we're able to see color because of the joint action of opponent cells. There's black, white, blue, yellow, and red, green. And when light of different wavelengths hits these cells, one of the 2 sides of the opponent cell fires. So either blue or yellow, either red or green, and either black or white. Based on the combination of these cells and how they fire, we're able to make about 10 million color distinctions. But not every animal has 3 opponent cells. Dogs are dichromats, that is, they have the black and white and the blue and yellow. They lack the green-red. So dogs cannot see red or green. Anything we'd call red or green would appear brown to them. Now ask yourself, Could a dog imagine the qualitatively distinct experience of seeing red or green? Probably not. The dichromatic dog is not going to be able to imagine the red and green that humans see, even if the dog tried. Now, it turns out that, while we humans, we're trichromats, there are some animals that are tetrachromats, as they've got 4 opponent cells. So they can make 100 million color distinctions that we can't make. Pigeons are pentachromats. They have 5 opponent cells, and they can make billions of color distinctions that we can't, including inside what we call the ultraviolet range. So think about it. Could you imagine what the pigeon sees in the ultraviolet range? All right, now, you're probably going to be tempted to say violet. Of course, that's what the pigeon sees. They see in the ultraviolet range, they see violet. But you got to be careful, because to describe it simply as violet is to describe it from within human color experience, how it looks to us trichromats. Remember the dog, okay? To the dog, red and green just look brown. So, imagine a Dalmatian telling a collie, humans see in the ultra brown spectrum. Yeah, humans can make all kinds of distinctions of brown that we can't make, right? They have no idea that we're seeing red or green. Well, what if when pigeons see in ultraviolet, they have qualitative color experiences that we can't imagine? In fact, I think that's the most rational conclusion. Pigeons experience qualitative color experiences that we cannot conceive of or imagine. All right, so you've been good sports, if you're still with me. So let's bring this analogy back to intelligence and the idea that there are qualitative distinctions in intelligence. What we've already seen is that qualitative distinctions require familiarity and firsthand experience to really understand and appreciate. You must have the qualitative experience of seeing red and green to really understand what those color qualities are like. I think we see something similar when it comes to qualitative distinctions in intelligence, especially those that distinguish humans from other animals. Now, comparative cognition between different kinds of animals, it's a real branch of scientific research. And it turns out you cannot compare the intelligence of humans and other animals along a single metric or scale. So I remember learning this. I thought IQ was a measurement of amounts of intelligence, like degrees measure temperature. Turns out that's not how it works. First, IQ is actually an ordinal scale, not an interval scale. That is, it measures people in rank order of their intelligence, not in terms of amounts. So you might have thought intuitively someone with a 100 IQ is twice as intelligent as someone with a 50 IQ, like they have twice as much intelligence. That's not how it works. Think of it like a race. Someone with a 100 IQ is in the middle of the pack. Someone with a 50 IQ is near the back. It doesn't follow that those in the middle are twice as fast. Second, you can't assign IQs to animals. It's not like crows have an IQ of 75, cats have an IQ of 35, and porcupines an IQ of 12. You can't assign IQs to them at all. So not only is IQ a rank ordering, but it is a rank ordering of specifically human intelligence. IQ tests measure verbal reasoning and logical reasoning that animals are incapable of. So human intelligence is not on a continuous scale with animal intelligence. It's discontinuous. That is, human intelligence, it's not simply that we're just faster or more efficient at the same cognitive task. We have entirely unique forms of intelligence compared to animals. Or better, human intelligence is qualitatively distinct from that of any other animal. There are different ways of trying to get at the qualitatively unique types of human intelligence, but they all come down to the same basic cognitive abilities. So there's symbolic representation in language, concepts, and numbers, the ability to recursively generate an infinite number of meaningful expressions from finite components. This is the generative grammar, that Chomsky talks about. A theory of mind, the ability to attribute thoughts and feelings to other minds. Metacognition, the ability to reflect upon and think about one's own thoughts. And of course, causal and logical inference, the ability to reason deductively and the ability to understand what causes what. And then more generally, just the ability to engage in higher order reasoning, abstract reasoning, reasoning by analogies, and hypothetical reasoning. These are all distinctly human abilities. So different theorists who study animal cognition and human cognition, they might carve it up and package it differently, but these are the cognitive capacities that are qualitatively different from anything animals can do. Like, look, either you have metacognition or you don't. There's not a continuum. Either you can think using symbolic representation or you can't, and so on. So this is not about humans being further along a shared spectrum of cognitive abilities. These are discontinuous forms of intelligence. They're qualitatively distinct. So take a cat, take Mr. Cat. You can't speed up a cat's brain and get it to start reasoning hypothetically or get it to start reasoning through symbolic representations. Nor, I don't recommend this, but if you put 100 cats in a room, one, they wouldn't work together. But even if they did, it's not like all of a sudden their collective intelligence would start making causal inferences or start doing math. No, here's the thing. You can't scale up cat intelligence to reach human intelligence precisely because of these qualitative distinctions. So let's go with the analogy. Think back to the dog. Remember the dog who can't see red or green, but only brown. Did you think that dog could imagine the qualities of green or red without ever seeing them? Probably not. Well, cats are smarter. They're smarter than dogs. So let's switch to cats. Ask yourself, can cats regret that they don't have metacognition or, wish that they could reason hypothetically because of, how much better life would be? Mr. Cat is like, man, I wish I could engage in metacognition. My interior intellectual life would be so much richer. Imagine if I could just think hypothetically. If I could think hypothetically, think of all the things I could do, right? No, of course not. Look, a cat can only regret its lack of metacognition through metacognition. The cat cannot wish it had the ability to reason hypothetically because that would be reasoning hypothetically. Nor could a cat scientist formulate any kind of plan to achieve the ability to reason causally, because any such plan would involve causal reasoning. All right, so do you see the problem? Because the cat lacks these qualitatively distinct forms of intelligence, the cat cannot imagine or reason about them, much less formulate a strategy to achieve them. No cat scientist is ever going to engineer a robotic cat with metacognition. Due to the qualitative limitations of cat intelligence, the cat cannot even discover these higher qualities of intelligence. For the cat to think or plan about any of these superior qualities would be for the cat to already have them. All right, so let's go back to humans. Do you really think you can imagine the color experience of the pentachromatic pigeon? I don't think you can. Now, do you think that you could imagine and articulate qualitatively superior forms of intelligence? That is, forms of intelligence that are entirely outside and above your own cognitive capacities. And if you think you can, well, what are those qualitatively superior forms of intelligence? What are they? And could you prove that they're not just extensions of current human intelligence? This is the problem of pursuing qualitative superintelligence as a goal. I'm not saying there's no such thing as superintelligence. I'm not saying there aren't qualitatively superior forms of intelligence. I'm not denying that at all. What I'm saying is we can't even articulate what a superior quality of intelligence would be. Like, sure, we can articulate quantitatively superior forms of intelligence. We can imagine humans with faster brains, with more memory, but we can't imagine, articulate, or define qualitatively superior intelligence to what we have. Otherwise, we would already have it. So ask yourself these questions. How could you ever imagine qualitatively superior intelligence? How could you ever articulate and define a form of intelligence qualitatively superior to any human cognitive capacity? Now ask yourself, how would you go about designing something that you can neither imagine nor articulate? How does an engineering project advance towards achieving something it can't define? How would you even know whether or not you were making progress? So go back to Bostrom's definition, an intelligence that vastly outperforms humans. That's a definition that's very pragmatic, but also indirect. It basically comes down to you would know a vastly superior intelligence when you saw it. Fair enough. That might be sufficient for recognizing superintelligence should it arrive, but it doesn't provide the basis for making deliberate steps towards achieving it. There's no way to plan and methodically progress towards achieving qualitative superintelligence. All right, so do you see the issue? Neither Sam Altman nor Elon Musk is in any position to say progress is being made towards qualitative superintelligence. We wouldn't know until it just popped out. So you might be thinking, okay, fine, but what about collective and speed superintelligence? Might we be progressing towards those? And I'm going to say, no, we're not. Remember Bostrom's definition. Speed superintelligence is not merely an intelligence with really fast processing. It's an intelligence of at least human capacity, of at least human quality with really fast processing. Similarly, collective superintelligence, it's not just many thinkers solving a problem together, right? Involved in parallel processing. They've got to be thinkers of human quality intelligence. So even leaving qualitative superintelligence out, we'd still need to have brought machines up to the level of humans. That is, we'd have to engineer machines that already have qualitatively human intelligence. Nobody has ever done this. And in fact, I don't think there's been any progress, but I'll save that discussion for another video. All right, well, thanks for watching. If you are interested in more of these kinds of conversations and you want to investigate further, hit subscribe and I'll see you next time.